Welcome to my Lumion 8.3 webinar covering LiveSync 2.0 in SketchUp. In this webinar, I'm going to cover what's new in Lumion 8.3 and also showcase LiveSync live with SketchUp. So I'm Welton from CweltonDesign, and I'm just going to say this is one of the best updates ever from Lumion. From a SketchUp user, I can't even begin to describe how excited I was when I heard about this, and I can't wait to share. If you guys have not seen what anyone else has done with this, Lumion has done several videos worth looking at and featured Mike Brightman. I recommend taking a look at those as well if you haven't already, but if this is the first time you get to see this, then awesome. I can't wait to share this with you guys. So here we have SketchUp here, and I'm just going to go ahead. I love starting off here just looking at their release. They've done such a great job lately at documenting and showcasing their new features, and now they have these little GIFs showcasing what I want you guys to see. So what you're seeing right there is basically they don't even have to use words. Those images are great. Basically now we're able to sync directly our SketchUp model to Lumion, and there is almost no lag even on some of the heaviest models, which you guys will see firsthand. I'm going to open one of my super heavy models because I do use ridiculous texture sizes. You'll see it firsthand. Showcasing how now basically there's no exporting, importing at this point. It's all done live, as you're seeing through here. And we're going to jump in through that. And it's also for Revit. So when I mentioned Revit, I just did a tutorial covering Revit as well, the Lumion 8.3 update. I emphasize this a lot in my Revit one, but this started with Revit, with LiveSync 1.0. which was an awesome experience. It showed the ability to do these syncing, but it lacked materials. You couldn't add Lumion materials, which I was a little bummed out about, I guess, and you eventually would have to export it and then add the materials to it. But that's been done away, which is super exciting. And not only that, they did that, they fixed that for Revit, added a couple other things, and now it's for SketchUp too, which is what I always wanted. So as you're seeing, all materials, everything just comes through really quickly. And we're syncing cameras too, so that works out really well. And yeah, it's like an automatic way of syncing all this. It's a game changer for workflow, I'll tell you guys. And I'm still trying to figure out exactly all the things I can really do with this now, but I'm definitely really excited to showcase what I have figured out and at least some of my ideas in this. So start off, where do you get the LiveSync plugin? Because this is now kind of a SketchUp thing. You have to download Lumion 8.3. There's a couple other things I'll cover that 8.3 added as well. Of course, lots of little fixes here and there from 8 that have been covered, and some new things we'll showcase later. But once you download 8.3, you should have a link during the download to get the plugin, but I'm going to show you where you can get it right now. So let's jump back into blank SketchUp right here. So there it is, but just in case you guys don't know where to find it, you just need to go to the extension warehouse, and they've published it on there, and it works just the same. I bet if you just type in Lumion, there it is, and it's basically as simple as downloading it right here. And once that loads in and everything and downloads, that's all it takes to bring in. So I'm gonna have to do something, guys, on this tutorial, and I apologize for it. It's just the way of showcasing these two things side by side. I really don't like it. A lot of professionals are using at least 2 monitors now, but it's really hard to show you guys 2 monitors wide. It would make it harder for you to see, so I'm going to squish them on 1 monitor, which works. It does work. It's Lumion gets a little mad, and SketchUp isn't really happy to lose that space, but this way you guys are able to see things side by side. But if you have 2 monitors, this works amazing, just having Lumion on one side and SketchUp in our case on the other. First off, first step is this is an untitled SketchUp project. It's not going to let us sync unless we at least save it and give it a name. I'm just going to call this LiveSync. So if you tried to hit play right now, it would just say please save first. So I'm just saving you guys a step there. So I'm just going to start with the most basic shape here, a cube. So here it is in SketchUp. Normally you would have to save as, and then you'd go to import a new model in here. But now with this plugin here, we can cover some of these buttons. Right now, the only thing we can really press is this, which is going to tell you where to get it, which is another great. In case there's an update, you'll find it here in Help and Settings here. We'll talk about camera sync. Basically, do you want to start automatically camera syncing or not? There's not very many options right now, but you're looking at that play button. That's what we got to play. That's what we got to push. All right, so here's our model right there inside of SketchUp. It's gonna dump it right at the origin. You know, I don't remember if I've checked if this origin is synced with Lumion's. It might be. I wish I had looked in that. Now I think about it, I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure that Lumion will dump it right there. But it's just like any other imported object. In fact, it even created, doesn't get a good thumbnail, but it even created its own model right there. So we can move it around, move it up and down, depending on our Lumion scene. And what makes this special is it's a live model. So push pull, instant updating, and let's zoom out a little bit. You know, everything you could think of doing, everything's just going to be done instantly as you work. Pretty awesome already. This is, yeah. So I'll try to address a lot of the comments after the stream. I'm not very good at multitasking, and if I look at them, I throw me off. But I agree, it's syncing multiple windows of SketchUp in a single Lumion session. It is great. You can have multiple synced models actually. If you sync one in, and then you have another SketchUp model, you could basically stop one and sync the other. They can't be synced at the same time, but you basically can have multiple linked models into Lumion at once. I don't know if we'll cover that in this one. If we need to later, I can show that, but it's pretty awesome. So now let's start playing with materials. So let's instantly assign, and remember, this is kind of material theory, which I'm actually going to cover in some future tutorials. But what we're assigning here are some different mat IDs. It's basically the same thing as, you know, adding a new material. And so now Lumion is assigning these, and we can do, I'm just using SketchUp materials right here, brick. And as we get into this now, I might as well start talking as well about the camera. So here's that sync camera. Camera sync on, start camera and synchronization. Click on that, and we are tied now. So it's like side by side. Really cool. So when we're looking around in here, I'm looking at my SketchUp, I'm like, oh, there it is in Lumion, right there. Easy to see. You know, I want to adjust this texture size. I want it to be this big. Bam, just like that. You know, and I can apply it here and have these ones go the other way. It's just like regular. Just kind of showcasing how it's showing it off in Livestream. Same deal right there. Yeah, it does match the focal length. I'm pretty happy with it. The only thing I'm going to tell you to watch out for, and this is what Revit suffers from, Lumion can't do orthographic projection. So if you went to camera, parallel projection, Lumion's like, it can't do that. Not right now. So that's not a default setting in SketchUp, so it's really not anything to worry about, but that's the limitation. And you know, we can zoom out here, zoom in. I'm sorry, we're not zooming, we're changing our focal length, our field of view. And it does a pretty good job matching it. I think once you get into really confined interior spaces, you start to see a little bit, but man, they've done a good job as it is. So you could play a couple of things in here. This is a beautiful shape we're working with here. This is just showing off the very basics. It's gonna get a little more exciting here. So what I'm gonna showcase here too is, as I mentioned before, LiveSync 1.0 with Revit. It looked just like this, basically identical, but you couldn't actually edit the materials. You couldn't assign Lumion materials. You could basically only bring in SketchUp materials, which is not too great, or Revit, either one. Once we get into the Lumion materials, I can assign one of these new polygon bricks or something in here. Alright, so now anything called brick tumbled here is assigned to our Lumion polygon material here. So if I were to click right here, it's that same brick. If I were to go and add a new one here, and so this is like a CMU pattern kind of. Watch this. I'm gonna make this look like this, and I'm going to basically I'm going to showcase something setting the material scale to 0. Oh, and I'm trying to, this will work. Just kind of concrete block. Let's do square. That works. They're not the exact same size, but if I set to 0, look at that, it's lined up the same way. And if I wanted to be really weird, I could do this. Who knows? But I think you guys are getting the point on that. Let's just see if there's anything else really I had in mind showcasing here. Oh, layers. So layers, this kind of opens a whole new possibility here. So let's set this box. I like to group everything. Let's set this box here to a layer. Well, we need to create the layers first. We'll just do layer 1 and layer 2 right now. So this is layer 2, and this is layer 1. Watch out on how you name them. It's called layer 2 here, and then you go inside. You can give it another layer. That's a SketchUp thing. Just that can get a little mixy here. I just made up a word, mixy, but all right. So material on and off. So what we could essentially do is you can create scenes. I mean, this is 2 layers. You guys, I'm sure, will have projects, multiple layers, different variations that you could play with. And I could have scene 1 is they're both on. Scene 2, just layer 2 is on. Scene 3, just layer. Oops. So scene 2, just layer 2 is on, and then scene 3, just layer 1 is on. And we're just switching scenes like this, having different variations, different sets. Oh, and that's pretty cool too. That's another thing I didn't really think about until just now. I've had a lot of clients who I've used their models to render in Lumion or edit. And there's sometimes they've gone in the software and they set up scenes in SketchUp. And they say, can you match this? And it's not too hard, but it is kind of an art sometimes, especially depending on how zoomed or specific their angle is. It is kind of an art sometimes trying to match the angle they had in SketchUp and Lumion. You can there's some things you could do to calculate from the focal length, but now that's the really cool thing is it's kind of set right here. Now we can, if they had a specific scene, like we can match the camera now and capture that. So that's another cool little feature. So I think that about covers it for this, for the real basics here. I know I'm just playing with a really fun little project. Let's jump into another example scene here where we can basically start from scratch and just bring in a model, pretend that it's your existing project, and how am I going to implement this in my existing project if I didn't start LiveSync? Well, this will kind of give you an idea. Alright guys, so here we are in my final scene here. So as in, this is a project that's fully populated with everything that I would actually put into my Lumion and SketchUp projects to kind of showcase some heavy lifting that the live stream can do. Take this off, but so here's our SketchUp model here, and this is the same image that was on a little clip in here. So I have final, all materials, everything's added in here. Again, Lumion does not like, it's not like to be squished like this, but you know, final renderings have come from this project already. You need full credit to Mabry Custom Homes as their model, but I have it live synced right now, so I can show you live how this can work and how the lag works on something that's really heavy. I believe the materials themselves are probably about like 2 gigs in size. I've done a lot worse, but so let's take a look at that right now. And I have a cool little use case scenario we can show off as well. So let's sync our cameras here. There we are, looking at this. Alright, so let's do a quick test. I'll lift up one of these. Let's see how fast that, oops, well, there we go, that kind of shows it. Everything's synced still very fast, even though it's loading all those materials over again. So that's something that's very much impressed me. SketchUp's not cooperating right here, but it's fine. So obviously you're seeing I'm doing Control Z, undoing, and Lumion is picking that up with right along with SketchUp. Something in this, you know, we're at a 33-degree angle here. I'm gonna try. Lumion likes to be a little more wide, and so I'm gonna set it to 60 here. I think that'll make things a little bit easier. So another thing we could take a look at here. I played with the layers in this example here. So I have two sets of furniture layout right here. So in this case, look at the furniture out here on the patio by the pool. So I also have a scene where it says furniture layout 1, and I go to furniture layout 2. We can see how quickly, let's see how quickly they'll sync to the variation 2. I mean, almost instant. It was pretty dang fast. That's the kind of thing I want to show. Going back, you can turn them all off. Another thing you'll notice too is even though I could, for example, let's wait for that to come back. Okay, so we could, you guys might have noticed when you have a heavy model like this one, and you go to add a new material. Sometimes Lumion can take its time. If that model itself already has lots of really high resolution images, the more you add, it starts to get a little more bogged down. So that's the same limitation that's going to exist here as well. So in this case, I have a ton of materials on here, and so if I were to add a brand new material into my SketchUp model, not something that's already in the model, like if you go to the home here, you see materials that are already assigned in this model. If I did a whole new material like this, use these, Lumion, it'd be essentially, there we go. If we have a material that's already loaded, we can assign that anywhere else in here, and Lumion will do it instantly, like normal. It'll be the same speed. But if we add a brand new material, it will take a second. It'll do something like this. Maybe I accidentally clicked on something and already did this assign. I'm not sure what I did here. So if I were to add this asphalt here, made a square, or just decided to paint this, a brand new material that wasn't assigned before, it'll just take a second. You know, I've been thinking a lot as well about these layers and scenes, and a lot of potential use cases you can use from that. Part of it kind of reminds me of the variations effect, where you could just have different variations loaded. But in a way, you could do that if you were working with just like multiple stills, not an animation. You could do that. You could do a different workflow, for example, where you have a SketchUp project, and you have all your layers laid out, and then you're importing those pieces. You could have your scenes all set up, and you basically just go to this scene and then render that set in Lumion. Then click on the next scene with your different variation of layers, and then render it again in Lumion. Of course, this only works with stills, but that's something that actually I think could benefit me a lot, and maybe some of you guys if you work with projects with multiple pieces that you bring into Lumion. And let's showcase the idea I was just talking about here. I'll try to play a little nicer here. So now SketchUp's taking its time. Okay. Alright, so existing material here, shoot it onto here, instant. That's kind of the point I'm sharing. So Lumion is still very fast at doing this, but if I were to assign a new material in here, like just this random asphalt material here, it'll be about the same amount of time as assigning a brand new material in Lumion, so it's basically doing the same thing. It's kind of like we're just jumping a bunch of steps. With this LiveSync, it's like you set it up in SketchUp, export, import it into Lumion, and then do this, and now it's just all streamlined. Awesome. Yeah, I really look forward to seeing what some other people are doing with this. Let's go ahead and... So there it is, it came in there. There is a reason it's red, I'll explain that another time, but it's labeled the same name, asphalt. I believe it's because this is a grayscale image, and Lumion doesn't like grayscale, it likes 32-bit. Anyways, the other idea I was going to share is that if you have your model already in Lumion, and you want to implement this as well, if it has the same name, you just open your Lumion project. This is actually what I did in this case. You open your Lumion project, and then you open your SketchUp project, and you hit sync, and it jumps into your old project. You don't have to import a new model, save the materials over, or anything. It instantly will jump in, and that's just if everything is labeled the same, and it's your same workflow. If you use an older model, you might have some issues there, just as you would exporting and importing an older model onto whatever is new existing in what is your most up-to-date model in Lumion. So, yeah, finished quality, all set up from here. An important point, I point out again that you can't edit inside of this mode. Photo and movie mode, if I were to do a sync, it will not come through. You can do build with effects though. And we'll just show that really fast. So when we have build with effects, let's see if we can do, depth of field is kind of annoying, but let's see if we can, I'm going to disable depth of field for you guys. Let's find a wall where there isn't a window. Well, let's just do this. This will be kind of a cool effect. So we have that. We have build with effects on, so it looks a little better than just build mode. Oh, now SketchUp is SketchUp's catching up now. So let's what if I went and just removed, and then if we went through and deleted this, we're in build with effects, and it deleted right there. Now it's like when those doors open fully, and it covered that point. And there's really not too much to cover besides the new Lumion 8.3 features that I wanted to show off, which are definitely worth talking about. So for one thing, remember our new Lumion water from 8.0? So when we click on this water, you'll notice there's a new slider. Well, now if you look, there's a border displacement here. And if you watched my live stream on the water, I talked about how this is displacement mapping. It's actually distorting the geometry, and I'm going to ruin my scene here, but it's okay. So you can do some pretty big waves in here, and you might have noticed that on the edges you start to only notice it like when you start to see the edge, but now you can clamp the edges flat and then let the rest go wild. So with it on, so that's the extremity here. Let's just turn that down a little bit. So that's how it can go up and down. When I increase the scale, it's doing big waves and stuff, and I can clamp the edges down. So they didn't really showcase that one off, but that's a huge help. I've noticed some weird stuff going on when I first started using this, so that's a new thing they've added. And there's another big one. I think we're done with SketchUp right now. I forgot to mention too, you can always stop your sync. And say you don't want Lumion jumping back and forth so much with every change, you could just go ahead and stop your sync and then play later, and it's basically like re-importing. It'll take a second again, and I mentioned this before, I jumped ahead of this, but when you go to sync, it does take a second to load. It takes some time to load, about the same amount of time basically as re-importing, but as you can see, that's the only time you're going to be sitting there waiting usually. So you wait now so you don't have to wait later. But you could always stop syncing, and it should everything should still save over here. That's the most up-to-date one, is this one. The last feature I'm going to showcase here in Lumion is a pretty interesting one actually. So now there's a new effect. If I go to add effect, and it's under various, we have this print poster enhancer. So it doesn't really explain what it is, but I'll let you guys know because I know what it is. So apparently with the implementation with Hyperlight and Skylight, they were having a hard time on the 4K and 8K resolution. So when you go to render this, guys, print and poster, 4K, 8K. If you guys, I should use Lumion's terminology here. And if you didn't know this, Lumion actually renders a different method on 720 and 1080p. That's actually the best method. And it uses another method to upscale it, basically, and tile it. You go on the forum and ask them that I don't really understand it fully, but people were coming across issues with the way it rendered in these upper resolutions. And Lumion's solution was to get it to work at those such high resolutions as they have this new effect. And it's basically an on-off button. I'm going to show you guys what it does, but I'm going to do a scene where we don't have effects, so it goes a little faster. And in order to eliminate some of these issues that people had noticed, you have to enable this effect. I don't know the specific issues that really flare it up, but I will show you what it looks like. So remember, it's an on-off switch. Normally we'd go to render. We'll just do one right here on print. So that was running fast enough. So now it says, see, it says color, 64 passes. That's your normal amount of passes to render at 4K. And then it runs a denoise pass, and you kind of see that the windows go black. If you didn't know what this was and it was turned on, you'd probably freak out after you've been sitting there waiting at render and you look at the windows like that. So Lumion does the composition and puts them together and cleans up some of these potential effects that could happen. It does add about, it can add about 30 to 50% more render time, but I'm glad it's an option. It's not something they just forced on everything. It's something that you can manually adjust. And you know about it now. It was in the list of the more detailed 8.3 releases, but not on the generic, just the LiveSync, because they really just showcase LiveSync, but really they did a lot of work to clean a lot of other stuff and refine it, and that about covers it. So thanks for bearing with me, guys. This is great to be able to showcase Lumion 8.3 LiveSync with SketchUp. Kind of a dream come true. As soon as they did the Revit one, I was like, man, this would be excellent with SketchUp, and they knew it too, and so they did it. It's great with Revit. It's better with Revit now, and I think it's just perfect with SketchUp. It's as if SketchUp and Lumion didn't mesh well enough as it is. It's even better now. Alright, so we're going to close this out. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. And until next time, guys.